Let's now shift our attention to the American President Joe Biden, who's launching the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework.
Countries from across the Indo-Pacific, Australia, Brunei, India, and by the way, Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for being here as well. Prime Minister of India, Republic of Korea, Malaysia, New Zealand, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. We're here today for one simple purpose. The future of the 21st century economy is going to be largely written in Indo-Pacific, in our region. The Indo-Pacific covers half the population of the world and more than 60% of the global GDP. And the nations represented here today, and those who will join this framework in the future, are signing up to work toward an economic vision that will deliver for all peoples, all our peoples. The vision for an Indo-Pacific that is free and open and secure as well as resilient, where economic growth is sustainable and is inclusive. We're writing the new rules for the 21st century economy that are going to help all of our countries' economies grow faster and fair. We'll do that by taking on some of the most acute challenges that drag down growth and by maximizing the potential of our strongest growth engines. Let's start with new rules governing trade and digital goods and services, so companies don't have to hand over the proprietary technology to do business in a country. Let's create a first-of-its-kind supply chain commitments to eliminate bottlenecks in critical supply chains and develop early warning systems so we can identify problems before they occur. And let's pursue other first-of-its-kind commitments to clean energy and decarbonization. The climate crisis is an existential threat that is costing us trillions in economic damage, but there's also incredible potential and opportunity to solve problems and create good jobs by transitioning to a clean energy economy. Let's choke off the loopholes that get at the corruption that steals our public resources. It's estimated that corruption saps between 2 to 5% of global GDP. It exacerbates inequality. It hollows out a country's ability to deliver for its citizens. And tax and trade belongs in the same framework because if companies aren't paying their fair share, it's harder for governments to pay for trade adjustment assistance or to fund education or health services or a range of public investments that make it so hard for families that feel like they can't raise their children and give them a better life. That's ultimately my economic policy and foreign and domestic, what our foreign and domestic policy is about. And that's what this framework is about as well. So starting today with 13 economies, economies that represent diverse sets of perspectives as we work on pursuing our common goals. That's critical because a key to our success will be the framework's emphasis on high standards and inclusivity. This framework should drive a race to the top among the nations of the Indo-Pacific region. And I want to be clear that the framework will be open to others who wish to join in the future if they sign up and meet the goals and work to achieve those goals. I'm glad to have seen so many of you in person the past 2 weeks. At the U.S.-ASEAN Summit, I saw many of you in Washington, and during my travels to Asia, and I'm eager to hear from each of you today. I thank you for taking the time to be part of this framework launch, and let me close by saying the United States is deeply invested in the Indo-Pacific. We're committed for the long haul, ready to champion our vision for a positive future for the region, together with friends and partners, including the nations in this room and on the screen. It's a priority in our agenda, and we're going to keep working to make progress with all of you every day so that we can deliver real, concrete benefits for all our people. That's how I believe we will win the competition of the 21st century together. So thank all of you again for joining today, and I'll invite Prime Minister Kishida to say a few words now. Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Joe.
ジョーさんありがとうございます。President Biden of the United States of America and distinguished leaders, I sincerely welcome and strongly support the launch of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, IPEF, proposed by President Biden today in Japan. As President Biden mentioned just now, the Indo-Pacific region is home to half of the world's population and approximately 60% of the world's GDP, and it truly is the engine of global growth and vitality. Aiming to realize a free and open Indo-Pacific, Japan has been contributing to the stable prosperity of the region in cooperation with the United States and regional partners, focusing on three pillars, namely entrenching and strengthening fundamental values and principles, pursuing economic prosperity, and ensuring peace and stability. And tonight, the fact that President Biden is visiting Japan and announcing the launch of IPEF here is a clear demonstration of the United States' strong commitment to the region. I commend wholeheartedly President Biden for his strong leadership. Japan will join IPEF and work closely with the United States, ASEAN countries, and other regional partners to help create a new framework. In order for IPEF to be a meaningful framework for the regional economic order, it is important to address what we can among areas that are critical in participating countries and to have concrete outcomes. IPEF's focus on supply chain resilience, decarbonization, and clean energy, as well as the digital economy, is timely in the current international context. It is important to work with the private sector in these areas of cooperation. This includes digital trade, creating common regional rules and standards, improving transparency and predictability, developing talent, and technical assistance. Let us work together to create a framework that finds a good balance between cooperation and rules, and we look forward to working with you on that. I believe it is important for ASEAN, the source of dynamism in this region, to play a central role in IPEF. Japan respects the unity and centrality of ASEAN and will actively participate in the discussions in cooperation with the United States and other partners who are here today. We look forward to working together to build a more prosperous Indo-Pacific region by bringing together the initiatives and wisdoms of countries in the region, including the U.S.'s Indo-Pacific strategy, Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific, the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific, and India's Act East policy. IPEF is an inclusive and open framework that will remain open to the participation of new partners following its inception today. We welcome more partner countries to join IPEF discussions in the future. And through IPEF, we will work together to create an economic order that will ensure sustainable growth, peace, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region in the years ahead. I look forward to the opportunity to work with our many partners in the region. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, Prime Minister Kishida, thank you very, very much. And to everyone, we'd like to give everyone participating an opportunity to speak to this initiative, starting with Prime Minister Modi. Mr. Prime Minister.
Rashtrapati Biden.
President Biden and Prime Minister Kishida and all the leaders who are with us today online. Excellencies, I am very pleased to be with all of you at this important event. The Indo-Pacific Framework is the announcement of our collective desire to make this region the engine of global economic growth. I thank President Biden for taking the initiative to organize this important event. The Indo-Pacific region is the center for manufacturing, economic activities, global trade, and investment. History bears witness to the fact that India has for centuries been a very important center for trade flows in this region. It is therefore significant that the most ancient commercial port is located in my home state in Gujarat, in Lothal, and therefore it is necessary that we find shared solutions to the economic challenges of the region and that we make creative arrangements. Excellencies, India will work with all of you to build an inclusive and resilient Indo-Pacific economic framework. I believe that the three key pillars for resilient supply chains between us are trust, transparency, and timelines. I am sure that this framework will be helpful in strengthening these three pillars and will encourage development, peace, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. It's a pleasure now to call on the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Prime Minister Ardern.
Kia ora koutou katoa na mihi nui kia koutou, and my warmest greetings to you all. As my fellow leaders gather for today's announcement, I'm en route to the United States for my first visit since the pandemic, but my third as Prime Minister. I'm very much looking forward to my visit to the US and supporting the businesses travelling with me as we reconnect with the world after a long period of disruption. New Zealand warmly welcomes the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework as a strong signal of US investment in the economic future of our wider home region. Our region is open for trade, investment and movement of people to support prosperity and open supply chains. The post-COVID world will be a new era. Our goal has to be to make it a better era. And if the Indo-Pacific is to successfully rise to the many challenges it faces, governments need to recommit to supporting an open and rules-based regional order, one that's more sustainable and resilient for all. The Indo-Pacific Initiative has the potential to boost growth and support the regional economic recovery as the world moves on from the pandemic. In the post-COVID recovery, greater economic engagement will be necessary. And now is the time to open doors, not close them. This initiative, as a non-traditional agreement, will provide new channels of collaboration in ways not just limited to trade. In particular, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework will support collaboration on...
All right, so these are the leaders who are in fact addressing this very crucial Indo-Pacific Economic Framework that's just now being proposed. Now, the American President Joe Biden had something very interesting to say, where he said that America is invested in the Indo-Pacific. This is, of course, going to be a long-term economic framework. And America says that this is going to be a crucial partnership of nations in the 21st century. We also heard the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi also stating that this is, of course, something that India is committed to, and the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida also insisting that it is important for the nations in the Indo-Pacific, of course, to come together to take on the challenges that the 21st century, of course, presents. We'll slip into a short break. More news and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned to WION. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.